Hello there and welcome to the Sleepy Scientist. I'm really glad you're here. Whether you're getting into bed, relaxing after a long day, or just letting your thoughts wander, this place is meant for you. Before we begin tonight's journey, can I ask, where are you listening from? It's always nice to imagine this quiet little space stretching across time zones and sleepy rooms. If you like peaceful, thoughtful talks like this, I'd truly appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribed. And to those who are already part of this slow and sleepy adventure, thank you so much for coming back. Now, I'll try not to make this too exciting, but if it does keep you awake, at least you'll leave with a head full of cool questions and the fun feeling of learning something you never knew you needed to know. So tonight, we're asking a very old and strange question, one that's confused scientists, deep thinkers, and dreamers for ages. If we can't see it, touch it, or stop it, is time even real? Time ticks. It moves. It keeps going, or so we say. We use it to plan our days and measure our lives, but no one has ever grabbed it. You can't keep time in a jar or feel it on your foot or carry it in your pocket. It's unseen, untouchable, and slippery. The more we try to explain it, the more it slips away like fog in the night. In the next few hours, we'll slowly drift through some of the strangest, sleepiest thoughts time has ever brought up. What is this thing we're always running out of? Why does it feel faster as we get older? Why does it slow down during boring talks or disappear when we're lost in a dream? And maybe the biggest mystery of all, could time be just an illusion? We'll see how your brain stretches and shrinks time without asking you. We'll hear what Einstein thought about clocks on rockets, why scientists still argue about whether time should even be in their math, and how old thinkers saw time as a circle, not a line. We'll glance at the past, peek at the future, and stop for a while in the strange moment we call now. But don't worry, you don't need to remember every detail. This trip is slow and soft, made to help you drift or daydream. If you fall asleep on the way, that's totally okay. The questions will be waiting when you wake up. So just lie back, take a deep breath, and let your mind wander. What if time isn't what we think it is? Time is often called a river, always flowing, always moving us from the past through the now and into the future. It flows, they say. It flies when we're having fun and drags when we're not. We talk about saving time, wasting time, losing time, finding time. But what is it, really? Most people will point to clocks, hours, minutes, seconds, small chunks of something that feels both steady and strange. We wake up with alarms, count down to birthdays, and watch the seasons flip like calendar pages. Spring turns to summer, leaves fall, snow gently covers rooftops. Time feels like the beat behind everything. Our hair goes gray, our bones ache, and we say, "Ah, time is passing." But that idea may only scratch the surface. Because when we look closer, really closer, time starts to blur. At its core, time seems to be how we notice change. The sun moves. Shadows grow and shrink. We get older. things move. Without change, would time still be there? Think of a universe stuck in perfect stillness. No atoms shaking, no stars blowing up, no thoughts in a single brain. Could that universe have time? Or would it just be stuck, not just quiet, but totally frozen in every way? Thinkers have asked this for ages. Some say time and change can't be separated. If nothing happens, then there's no time. No ticking, no falling apple, no heartbeat, no time. Others think time might be like a blank sheet that's still there even if nothing touches it. Isaac Newton believed in this kind of time, an unseen background ticking away whether anything happens or not. Gottfried Leibniz didn't agree. He thought time was just a way to talk about a series of events, nothing more. Today, many scientists lean more toward Leibniz. They don't see time as a real thing, but more like a way to show how one thing changes into another. An ice cube melts, a match burns, a person laughs. Without those changes, the idea of before and after wouldn't matter. Even the tools we use to track time are based on movement. A second used to mean the swing of a clock arm, and now it's based on how a special atom shakes. We don't measure time with time. We measure it with motion. If everything in the universe stopped at once, would a minute still go by? Some go even further. They think time isn't a real part of nature. It's just a mental tool the brain uses to handle a world that moves. Our minds, in this view, are like editors, stitching reality into a smooth story. Without that stitching, there'd be no past, no now, no future. Just a jumble of moments, each one separate. And yet, we feel time deeply. We remember, we look forward, we regret, we dream. These feelings seem to give time weight. They make it real. But maybe we've mistaken the story for the structure. Maybe time isn't something we're in, but something we're always making. That opens up a strange idea. Maybe time isn't real. Maybe it's a helpful trick, a frame for memory and thought, a cool trick of the mind that turns change into story. And yet, clocks keep ticking. Seasons still change. Hearts still beat. Whether time is a river, a rhythm, or just a great magic trick, it still shapes our lives, even if we can't say what it is. What if time isn't flowing at all, not like a river or a ticking clock, but just a label we've put on how things change? Imagine if time is simply the word we use for the way stuff shifts around us, like turning pages in a photo book, each page a still picture, nothing moving, no stream, no wave, just a bunch of images, one after another, each one a tiny bit different from the last, and when we flip through them in order, it looks like something is happening, someone walking, a rocket launching, a cat knocking over a glass, but inside each image, there's no motion, just stillness, just now, and when we line them up and look at them quickly, our minds fill in the movement, just like we do with cartoons, and suddenly a story appears, a person is moving, laughing, running, but really, it's only our brain telling us something is happening, and that's the magic, or maybe the trick, of time. It's not really there, maybe it's just how we see change, and this idea isn't new. In fact, it's a big question in science and philosophy. What if time is not a real thing, but just how we describe difference? Because if nothing changes, how would you know if time passed at all? Think about a film reel, each frame a frozen moment. Alone it means nothing, but play them fast and you get a scene, you get movement, but the motion isn't inside the frames, it's in how we see them, how we line them up. That's where time lives, not in the thing, but in our view, and some thinkers believe that's what time is, not a real thing, but the result of things changing, and maybe those changes don't even need time to happen, they just are, one after the other, with our minds stitching them together. And one physicist named Julian Barber says time isn't even part of the universe. He thinks there's just a collection of now moments. He calls them nows, each one a full snapshot of the universe, complete by itself, not leading anywhere, not connected to the next, just sitting there like photos in a giant gallery, and we don't move through them, we just are in one, then another, but there's no flow, no passage, just existence, and what we feel as time, that sense of moving forward, is just our brain linking the moments together, telling a story, and in Barber's view, we don't live in time, we live among these frozen moments, and the way we experience life is like flipping through a flipbook, seeing motion where there is none, feeling change where there is stillness. And it's strange but powerful, because if he's right, there is no timeline, no real before and after, just a vast landscape of frozen pictures. And our consciousness rides a thread through it, creating the illusion of flow, just like a reader flipping pages, and this view stands against the old idea of time as a background stage, like Newton believed, where time ticks along, whether anything's moving or not. But in Barber's idea, there is no stage, only the scenery, only the snapshots, and our minds create the order, not the universe itself, and that might mean what we call time is more of a mental shortcut, a trick we use to make sense of changes, like a survival tool that lets us plan, remember, and guess what's coming. But it's not a real force, not something outside of us, just something we invented to navigate life, and still, it feels so real, because our whole life is built around it. We age, we wait, we remember, and even if time is fake, the emotions it carries are not, the sadness of goodbye, the joy of a first hello, the quiet ticking of a clock when we're alone. All of that feels deeply true. And maybe that's the point, maybe time is the thread that links our feelings together, even if the thread isn't real, maybe we need it to make life feel like a journey, not just a stack of pictures. Maybe without that thread, it would all feel meaningless, just a jumble of snapshots with no direction, no story, no meaning. And even if time doesn't flow, maybe the story does, and maybe that's enough. Long before we had phones that buzzed or satellites that synced clocks, people told time by watching shadows. They didn't need machines, they used the sun, they put a stick in the ground, and as the sun moved across the sky, the shadow moved with it. That was the first clock. It didn't tick. It didn't glow, it just followed the light, slow and calm, and people rose when it was bright, worked with the seasons, and rested when it got dark. The rhythm was soft, forgiving, but soon, people wanted more, they wanted control, and so in ancient Egypt, they used bowls with holes that let water drip slowly, each drop marking a moment, the surface falling little by little. that was a water clock. In China, they burned candles that melted at a steady rate, and in Europe, monks rang bells every few hours to mark time for prayers. They wanted to feel connected to something bigger than just instinct. And then came the machines. In the 1300s, big clocks were built into towers. They used gears and weights, and while they weren't always accurate, they were loud and strong. Now people didn't just follow the sun, they listened for the hour. The bell told them when to move, when to work, when to stop, and by the 1600s, people had small watches, then pendulum clocks that swung with a steady grace, and by the 1900s, we had quartz clocks that used crystals, and finally atomic clocks that counted how atoms shake. They're so precise, they only lose a second every 100 million years, and you might ask, who needs a clock that perfect? But it wasn't just about curiosity, it was about need. When people began crossing oceans, building railroads, running factories, they needed to agree on time. Ships had to navigate, trains had to avoid crashing, workers had to switch shifts, and shops had to open and close together. The world was getting faster, and it needed a heartbeat, and that heartbeat became time, chopped into hours and minutes, guided by the tick of machines. And as we measured time more closely, something started to shift. Time became tighter, sharper, no longer a gentle rhythm but a set of rules. Now we set alarms, make appointments, chase deadlines. We don't just live with time, we obey it, and being late became a kind of sin, and being early became a virtue, and suddenly, time ruled us. We stopped thinking in sunrises and sunsets and started thinking in seconds. 10 o'clock sharp, lunch break at noon, train leaves at 5:23. We started living inside a schedule, and that brings up a strange thought. Does measuring time make it more real, or just more powerful over us? Because when we look at a ticking clock, what are we really seeing? The swing of a pendulum, the shake of an atom, the flash of a screen, its motion, its rhythm, but is it time? Or is it just a sign, a signal, a symbol we chose to follow? If your phone beeps every hour, is the beep time, or just a sound we agreed to notice? Is that tick a slice of reality, or just a part of the pattern we made? In ancient Greece, they had two words for time. Chronos meant the regular, measured time, like hours and days, but kairos meant something else. It meant the right time, the perfect moment, the pause before something big, the breath before the kiss. And today, we live by chronos. We count the hours, set the timers, watch the countdowns, but in doing that, we may have lost something, because kairos can't be measured. It's the feeling of now, the sense that this moment matters, even if it only lasts a heartbeat. Clocks can't show you that. They don't know the difference between joy and boredom. They don't care if you're laughing or crying. They just tick, and maybe, in trying to master time, we've shrunk it. We've turned it into boxes and grids, 24 hours, 60 minutes, 60 seconds. But life isn't a grid, it's a wave, it's a dance, and the more we chop it up, the more we forget that time used to be a question, not just an answer. And still, clocks are beautiful, they are proof of our genius. They help us build, connect, create. They've launched rockets, saved lives, linked cities, but maybe we should remember, they are tools, not truths. A clock doesn't show you what time really is, It just gives you a way to move through it, or maybe to pretend that you can, and in the end, breaking time into tiny pieces may have helped us build the world, but it might also have helped build the illusion that time is a thing outside of us. Something solid, something fixed, but maybe it's not. Maybe time is still wild, still mysterious, slipping between our fingers, hiding in the spaces between seconds, waiting for us to notice, and maybe, just maybe, it's not something we follow, but something we feel. Time isn't just something we count with clocks or watch in the changing seasons, it's something we feel deep inside our minds, and what's strange is that our brain doesn't treat time like a steady thing, it bends it, it stretches it, it sometimes makes it disappear. A moment can feel like forever, and an hour can pass like a blink. Think about fear. Imagine walking in a quiet forest and suddenly you hear a snap behind you. Your heart jumps. Time seems to slow down, every sound becomes sharp. Every second feels stretched. People who've had near-death experiences often say it felt like time stopped or like the world moved in slow motion. But did time really slow down, or did your brain just switch gears? Because outside nothing changed, but inside everything did. Your attention got sharper, your senses woke up, your brain processed more details, and later when you remember the event, it feels longer because your brain recorded more, not because time actually moved slower. And the opposite happens too, like when you drive to work on a route you take every day, you get there and don't remember much. The trip felt like nothing. Because your brain didn't bother recording it again, it's already seen. It didn't find anything new, so it didn't store it, and time seemed to vanish. That's how time plays in your head. It depends on how much you notice, how much your mind cares, and science shows that there's no one single clock in your brain. Instead, there are many systems working together to give you a sense of flow. One of the most important is a small bundle of about 20,000 neurons in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. It helps run your daily rhythm, your circadian rhythm. It tells you when to sleep, eat, and wake up. It watches light and darkness, and when it gets dark, it helps release melatonin so you feel sleepy. And when we travel across time zones, that's the part of the brain that gets confused, and we feel jet lag. But even in total darkness, this tiny clock still runs. It shows how deep time is wired in us, and apart from that daily rhythm, we also have another system that tracks short-term time, like seconds or minutes. It helps you clap with music, boil an egg, or pause before answering someone, and this system is spread out across different brain parts like the cerebellum, the basal ganglia, and the frontal cortex, and it's not exact, it's flexible and full of feeling. If you're bored, time drags. If you're excited, time flies. A watched pot really doesn't seem to boil, not because it takes longer, but because you're watching every second too closely. And time feels longer when you're paying too much attention. And here's something else. As we grow older, time seems to go faster. Childhood summers felt endless. Birthdays took forever to come, but now years vanish like smoke, and many scientists think this is because when we're young, everything is new, the brain is recording so much, and that fills time, makes it feel longer. But as we get older and do the same things again and again, the brain gets lazy, it skips recording, it says, "I've seen this," and time feels short. Think about traveling to a new place. On the way there, everything feels long, full of new sights and smells, but coming back feels quicker because your brain already knows the way. It stops noticing, it filters things out, and time shortens. Even in dreams, time can act strange. A few minutes of real sleep can hold hours of dream action. It shows that our time experience isn't tied to the outside world, but shaped by our brain's story. Scientists even did studies with people who can control their dreams. They were asked to count to 10 in a dream and signal when done, and most of the time it matched real seconds, but not always. Sometimes the dream was slower or faster. Because time in dreams is soft, it can stretch or shrink, and these things make us wonder, if our sense of time is this flexible, is time itself real, or is it just how we relate to it? Maybe real time moves steadily, ruled by particles and space, but the time we live, the time we feel, is more about emotion than physics. Some scientists think our sense of time is tied to memory and focus. When we focus, we store details, and the moment feels long later. When we don't, it fades fast, and time slips by. And others think time is tied to body awareness, like how we feel our heartbeat or breath. Those rhythms guide us. Some people who meditate say that during deep focus, time melts away. Minutes feel like hours, not because time stopped, but because the normal way we track it faded. Without change, without things to notice, time loses its shape, and maybe that means time is not something out there, but something we make, built from memory, motion, and mood, like color or music. Maybe time isn't what the world is, but how we read it. That doesn't mean it's fake, but it means it's personal. Two people can live the same 10 minutes very differently. One might be bored. One might be in love. The clock ticks the same, but the feeling of time is different, and if our brains can stretch or shrink time, what does that tell us? Maybe time is something we stitch together, second by second, moment by moment, and maybe time is both, a beat in the universe and a beat in our minds, one measured in stars, one measured in smiles. What exactly is now? It sounds easy. You hear this sentence now, you're breathing, maybe you're lying in bed, blinking, listening while the world keeps turning, but try to hold on to that moment, try to grab now, and it's already gone. The second you say now, it's in the past. The present slips away before you can touch it, like trying to hold a single drop from a running river. The flow doesn't pause just because you noticed. The present moment feels so real, so important. It's where life seems to happen, but when we look closer, science says it might not be as real or as solid as we think. Your brain doesn't show you the world instantly. Every sound, every sight, every touch travels through your nerves, gets processed, understood, and combined into a picture, and all that takes time, just a few hundred milliseconds, but enough to matter. So when you hear a sound, it already happened. When you see something, the light that hit your eyes left that object slightly in the past. You are always a little late to your own life, but you never notice, because your brain does a trick. It doesn't give you lagging updates, it smooths everything into what feels like now. It takes those signals, and backdates them, lines them up, and says this is the present, even though it already passed. Scientists call this delay the perceptual lag, usually around 2 to 3/10 of a second. Long enough for a fast tennis serve to fly right past you, and this leads to a question: if our brain is always playing catch-up, are we ever truly in the present? Or are we just living a tiny bit in the past, always building a version of now that already slipped by. To explain this, some experts use the idea of the specious present. It's a short window of time, just a few seconds, where your brain gathers events and turns them into a single smooth moment, like a mental envelope holding a handful of seconds and calling it now, not a point in time but a stretch, and you can feel this. Think about music. A song makes sense only because you remember the notes that came before. If you only heard one note at a time with no memory of the last one, there'd be no rhythm, no melody, just noise, but your brain holds a few notes together, and that becomes flow, and the same happens when you watch a movie. The film shows 24 still frames every second, but your brain blends them into motion. What you see isn't just the current frame, it's a mix of the last few, stitched together into something smooth, and that stitching, that blending of tiny slices, that's where the present lives, not in the world, but in your head. Your now is not a razor-thin moment, it's a tiny stretch of remembered bits, held in a row, and what's more, the size of that stretch changes. In moments of stress or excitement, your brain may stretch the now, more information comes in, more is remembered, and time feels slow, but in calm or boring times, your brain narrows the window, filters more, and time feels fast, so your now isn't fixed, it flexes with your mood and your focus, and if the present is this personal, this changeable, maybe it's not a feature of reality, but a product of the brain, and physics agrees, because in science, especially in relativity, there is no universal now. What's now for you might be already past or still future for someone else. Time depends on speed and gravity. People moving at different speeds or in different places will disagree on what events happened at the same time. There is no shared present across the whole universe. Each person has their own now, shaped by motion and location, so the idea that the whole universe shares one present moment just doesn't work. Instead, now becomes local, personal, something built, not given. Even in daily life, you can be in the same room as someone and still not share the same now. They might be lost in thought, you might be fully alert. One is here, one is somewhere else in their mind, and even practices like meditation, which are about being in the now, are really just ways to calm the mind and let the brain hold a clearer specious present, but even that still happens a little after the fact. The present is always something you're catching up to, always slightly behind you, so if the present is something the brain builds, then maybe there is no true now, just many personal nows, each one a bit behind real time, but vivid enough to feel real. And that doesn't make the present useless, it makes it more meaningful, because even if it's just a brain-made blend of old signals, it's still where you feel things, where your thoughts form, where your choices happen. The present might not be a hard moment slicing the past from the future, it might be a soft glow, a blurry stretch held together just well enough to keep you steady, and if we accept that, maybe we can stop looking for the exact now and instead just live in the rhythm of the moment, not a fixed point, but a wave, always rolling, always just a breath behind, always slipping into memory, but always returning again. And maybe that's enough. Einstein changed the way we see time. Before him people thought time was simple, it ticked like a clock, the same for everyone, the same everywhere, but Einstein said no, time is not separate from space, they are one thing, space-time, and it bends, it curves, it flows depending on how you move and where you are, and that changed everything. he showed that if you go really fast, close to the speed of light, time slows down for you, not just as a feeling, but for real. Your clock ticks slower. Your heartbeat slows, everything in your world runs in slow motion compared to someone standing still, and the same thing happens near strong gravity, like a black hole. Time runs slower there too. Gravity stretches time, bends it, pulls it, and this is not a guess, it's been tested. Satellites in orbit experience time a tiny bit faster than we do on Earth, and their clocks must be corrected or GPS won't work. Just a few billionths of a second off and you'd get lost trying to find your way home. That's how real and powerful this time bending is, and it leads to strange ideas. If you could fly fast enough, near light speed, and then come back, you might find that years passed on Earth while only a few months passed for you. It's called time dilation, and it's been tested with tiny particles that live longer when they move fast. It's not a dream, it's real, and it means time is not fixed, it's flexible, it's personal. And that breaks the old idea of time as a shared river we all float down together. Instead, each person has their own stream, their own pace, shaped by motion and mass, and in that world, what's now for you is not now for someone else, even if you stand side by side. And in space, the difference gets bigger, and that opens the door to questions we used to think were just science fiction, like is time travel possible? And the answer, surprisingly, is maybe. Because time travel to the future is already real. Astronauts who spend time on the space station experience it. They age just a tiny bit less than people on Earth, because they move fast and are farther from gravity, not by much, but enough to show it happens. And if we had the technology to fly faster, near light speed, we could jump into the future, leave for a day and return to find years have passed. But going back in time is harder, maybe impossible, because it breaks too many rules. It lets you change things that already happened, and physics doesn't like that. Still, some scientists think there might be ways, like using wormholes, tunnels through spacetime that could link 2 points, but they're only ideas, nothing proven, and even if they were real, they might collapse, or need more energy than the whole universe. So for now, time travel to the past stays in stories, but to the future, it's already here, in tiny ways, proven by math and machines. And all this tells us that time is not simple, it's not a straight line. It's a web, a shape that stretches and twists, and we are always moving through it in our own way. And yet, with all this science, time still feels human. We don't feel time dilation, we don't sense spacetime curves, we feel mornings and evenings, long days and short weekends, and maybe that's because our minds evolved to care about change, not physics. We care if it's time to eat, time to sleep, time to speak, and clocks were made to help us with that, not to explain the universe, but to keep order. And maybe we need both truths, the soft truth of the human clock and the hard truth of the cosmic clock, one for feeling, one for knowing, and if they don't match, that's okay, because both are real in their own way. And even Einstein, with all his genius, still lived by the tick of the day. He still felt time pass like the rest of us, slow in silence, fast in joy, sharp in pain, gentle in love. And in the end, maybe that's what matters most, not the math, not the bending, but how time feels, how it carries our lives from one moment to the next, how it holds our memories and dreams, how it lets us grow, and maybe it's not a mystery to solve, but a rhythm to live with, a story to follow, not because it's perfect, but because it's ours. And when you sit still, when you watch the light change on the wall, when you hear the wind move past the window, you're feeling it, you're swimming in it, and even if time is not a thing you can hold, it's a thing you can feel, and maybe that's enough. There's a theory called block universe, and it says time doesn't pass at all. It says the past, present, and future all exist at once, like a giant frozen map of everything that ever happened and ever will happen, and we don't move through it, we're just inside it, like a tiny dot on a big painting. In this view, every moment, every second, is still there, nothing is lost, nothing is coming, everything just is. And our feeling of time passing is just us going from frame to frame, like flipping through a photo album and thinking the pictures are moving, when really we are. And some scientists believe this because of the way space and time are linked in relativity. In that theory, your now is not my now, and there's no clear line where the present ends and the future begins, so instead of saying time flows, this theory says it's all there, all the moments sitting next to each other like pages in a book, and we live our lives on one page. But the others don't vanish, they still exist. Your childhood, your future old age, your quiet evenings, they're all still part of the book, and we're just reading through it one line at a time. And that idea feels strange because we're used to thinking of the past as gone and the future as not here yet, but in the block universe, that's just a trick of memory and hope, and that brings up something even deeper. What if free will is also a trick? Because if the future already exists, then our choices are already made, we're just acting out what's already written, and we don't really pick our path, we just walk it, and some people find that scary, but others find it comforting, because it means no moment is ever really gone, everything we ever loved still exists somewhere in the block, every laugh, every hug, every sunset, they're all still glowing on their own page, and time doesn't take them away. And this connects to another strange idea, entropy. The rule that says things go from order to disorder, ice melts, smoke rises. People age, and it gives us the arrow of time, the sense that time moves forward, not backward, because we remember the past but not the future, and entropy is part of that, because a memory is order, it's information, and to keep it takes energy, so we remember things that were ordered and clear, and we forget the mess, and that makes the past feel different than the future. And scientists think the entire direction of time might come from this simple idea, that the universe started in a very ordered state, and has been getting more messy ever since, and that's why we feel time going forward, because the past was more organized, and the future is more scattered, and that's what memory rides on, the shift from order to disorder, and if that's true, then time's arrow is just a result of the way the universe began, not something built into time itself. And there's more. In quantum physics, particles can be in many states at once until we measure them, and then they seem to collapse into one state, and that process appears to move in one direction, forward, but the equations that describe it work both ways, past and future, so the laws don't force time to move forward, only our experience does, and some scientists wonder if time is not a rule of nature, but a side effect of how we observe things, and that's wild. It means time might not be part of the universe at all, but something that comes from the way we look at it, and in that sense, time is like color, not a thing in the world, but a way we interpret light, and that changes everything, because then time becomes personal, like a lens, and your time might not be mine, not just in science, but in life, because people feel time in different ways. The same day can feel long or short depending on how you spend it. A minute waiting in line feels longer than a minute laughing with a friend, and a month of grief feels endless, while a month of joy flies by. So maybe we already live in many times, layered on top of each other: your heart's time, your memory's time, your body's time, your phone's time, and the earth's time, spinning slowly under the stars. And when we say time is passing, maybe what we really mean is that we're changing, we're growing, we're moving through moments, each one a little different than the last, and we string them together into a life, a story, a journey that only makes sense when we look back. And maybe that's the key. Time is not something we see while it happens, it's something we notice later, in the quiet, in reflection, in memory, and maybe that's why it feels so fast, because we rarely stop to watch it, to feel it, to hold it in our hands like sand slipping through fingers, and when we do, we realize it was never the clock that moved, it was us, and all those seconds we tried to save or waste or spend, they weren't really about time. They were about how we lived. And the only thing more strange than time itself is how precious it becomes once we notice it, how full it feels when we give it our attention, and how empty it seems when we don't. We talk about time as if it's simple, we ask what time it is, we check watches and phones, we set alarms, we plan things by the hour. But under all of that is something strange, something we don't fully understand. Time isn't just about schedules, it's about life itself. It's how we understand change, growth, decay, memory, and future. It's in every birthday, every goodbye, every dream we chase or let go. And yet, no one knows what time truly is. Is it a force, a direction, a feeling, or just a word? And through history, people have tried to explain it. Ancient people saw time in cycles, seasons repeating, days rising and falling, the moon coming back, the same stars circling. They didn't think of time as a straight line, but as a wheel, always turning, and this made sense. Crops grew, then died, then grew again. Rivers flowed but always came back in floods. Time was not something that moved forward but something that spun around. And even now, parts of life still feel like that. The school year ends, the leaves fall, winter comes, then the cycle begins again, and for some, that's a comfort. Time returns, brings chances back, heals slowly, like the turning of a slow circle, but then came clocks and trains and machines, and with them, a new idea. Time is a line, one point leading to the next, no going back, no repeating, just forward motion, and this view made planning easier. It made science work better. It fit with progress and invention, and in this new time, there's a past we can't change, a present we barely touch, and a future we try to shape, but even that might be an illusion. Maybe time isn't a circle or a line, maybe it's a cloud, or a map, or something else entirely, and that's where philosophy comes in. Thinkers from long ago to today have wondered about time. What is it? Where does it go? Why do we feel it? And why does it hurt sometimes? And their answers are as strange as the questions. Some say time isn't real at all, that we just invented it to make sense of motion and change. Others say time is the most real thing, the very heart of the universe, and without it, nothing would make sense. Some believe time had a beginning, like a fire lit in darkness, a single moment where everything started, and they think it might have an end too, a time when time itself runs out, when everything slows to stillness or collapses into something new, and others believe time is endless, without start or finish, always flowing, always moving, like a river that never dries. And if that's true, where do we fit in? Are we drops in the river, swept along, or are we swimmers, choosing where to go? Or maybe we're the ones building boats, trying to stay above the waves, and no one knows for sure, because time touches everything but hides from view. We see its effects, not its face. We see wrinkles and ruins and growth and loss, but never time itself. And that makes it one of the greatest mysteries we carry, and yet, we build our lives around it. We tell stories with it, we fall in love with people over time, we forgive through time, we grow wise because of time, we lose people and heal over time, we raise children who one day raise their own, and all of it is wrapped in time, but not in a way we can hold. More like something we breathe, something we feel in silence and in noise, something that moves even when we sleep, and maybe that's why we try so hard to understand it, to capture it, to use it well. We write songs about it, we create traditions around it, we celebrate birthdays, we remember anniversaries, we count down to New Year's. And all of this is our way of saying time matters. Even if we don't know what it is, we still feel it, and maybe that's enough. Maybe we don't need to solve it. Maybe it's okay to just live inside it, to feel it pass like music, not a riddle but a rhythm, something to move with, not control. And sometimes, in the quiet, when we sit alone, or watch a sunset, or listen to an old voice, we can almost hear time itself, soft and steady, whispering not answers but presence, reminding us that life is not about holding on to moments, but living inside them, and letting them go when they're ready, like leaves in the wind, not lost, just moving on. And in that way, maybe time is not our enemy, maybe it's our teacher, showing us that nothing stays, and that's what makes everything matter, not because it lasts forever, but because it doesn't, and when we accept that, maybe we stop racing the clock and start listening to it, not to win, but to understand, not to beat it, but to be with it, not to fear it, but to thank it for giving us the chance to be here, to feel, to change, to live. And maybe that's all time really is, not a thing, not a place, not a puzzle, just the gift of now, the beat between what was and what will be, always moving, always gone, always beginning again. Think about how we talk about time. We say we spend time, we save time, we waste time, we run out of time, as if time is money or water or some object we can hold. And that's interesting, because it shows how deeply time is tied to value. When we say someone gave us their time, we feel thankful, because we know time is something we can't get back. Once it's gone, and we don't just live in time, we trade it, we offer it, we lose it, we give it away, and this makes us careful. We plan our days, we watch the clock, we try to be on time, we talk about deadlines and lifelines, we measure our lives in years, birthdays, anniversaries, and all of that tells us one big thing: time matters, not just as a force but as a feeling, and as a limit, because time is the one thing that touches everyone, no matter where you're born. No matter what you believe, time keeps moving, and we all feel it, and yet, we all feel it differently. A child waits for their birthday like it's a far-off dream, while an adult sees another birthday come and go too fast. And this is the truth: time stretches and shrinks depending on how we feel. When we're happy, it runs; when we're afraid, it freezes; when we're bored, it crawls. And that means time is not just a clock on the wall, it's also a mirror of emotion, of attention, of memory. And maybe that's why we fear wasting time, not because the minutes matter, but because we feel like we missed something, a chance, a moment, a connection, and that feeling can haunt us. But here's something strange: even when we waste time, we're still inside it. We can't step out of it, we can't stop it, we can only choose how we move through it, fast or slow, calm or rushed, awake or asleep. And this brings up the idea of presence, being in the moment, fully there, because sometimes time feels heavy not because it's fast or slow, but because we're not really in it. We're thinking about the past, or worrying about the future, and the now slips by unseen. And that's why people meditate, or pause, or breathe deep, to come back to now, to feel the moment they're in, because the present is the only part of time we can touch. The past is memory, the future is guesswork, but now is real, and even now doesn't stay. It keeps moving, changing, vanishing, and yet, that's what makes it beautiful, because it means every second is a new start, a fresh chance. And we don't need to fix yesterday to make today better. We just need to notice it. And maybe that's the gift of time: it never stops, it never waits, but it always offers another moment. And maybe the secret is not to master time, but to walk with it; not to fight the clock, but to listen to it; not to control the future, but to be here now, fully, openly. And when we do that, even a single second can feel full, even a quiet minute can feel rich. And when we look back, it's not the amount of time that will matter, but how we lived inside it, how we laughed, how we cried, how we helped, how we tried. And all of that is what gives time meaning, not its length, but its depth; not its measure, but its memory. And maybe that's why we love photos, because they hold time still for a second, they freeze a feeling, they let us return, even if only in our minds. And maybe that's why music feels so deep, because it moves with time, it flows like we do. And maybe that's why goodbyes hurt, because they remind us that time always moves, always changes, never stays. And maybe that's okay, because without time, nothing would grow, nothing would change, nothing would start, and nothing would end. And maybe that's the real truth: time gives life shape, time gives life meaning, time gives us the chance to be more, to learn, to try, to forgive, to heal, to begin again. And no matter how we feel about it, time will keep going. It won't ask, it won't pause, it won't explain, it will just go, soft and steady, moment to moment, day to day. And all we can do is go with it, dance with it, breathe with it, and maybe, if we're lucky, make something with it, a memory, a story, a difference. And maybe that's enough. People often ask where time comes from. Was there time before the universe began, or did time start with the Big Bang? And this is not just a science question, it's a question about everything, about how we got here, and where we're going. And some scientists believe that time and space were created at the same moment, in the same explosion, not inside something, but from nothing. And that's hard to picture, Because our minds can't imagine a place without time, we think of things starting and stopping. We think in sequences, but this theory says time didn't exist, and then it did, and once it started, it brought space with it, and from that moment, everything began to move, to change, to evolve, and that motion is what we now call time. But if you go back far enough, near the start, time gets strange, it bends, it warps, it behaves in ways we don't understand, and at some point, science runs out of answers. Because the math breaks, the numbers go infinite, and time becomes a mystery. And that's where people turn to belief. Some say time is part of a plan, part of something bigger. Some say time is just random, just the way things unfolded, and others say time is an illusion, that it doesn't really exist, that it's just a side effect of how we experience the universe, and no one knows for sure. But one thing is clear: time is deeply tied to existence. Without it, we couldn't move, we couldn't speak, we couldn't grow, we couldn't remember, and we couldn't dream, and that makes time feel sacred, not in a religious way, but in a human way. It's the stage we live on, the ocean we swim in, and it's the one thing we all share, rich or poor, young or old, happy or sad. Everyone lives in time, and everyone runs out of it, and that truth can feel heavy, it can feel scary, it can make us wonder what's the point, but it can also wake us up, it can remind us that moments matter, that now matters, that this breath, this word, this heartbeat is real, and nothing lasts forever. But that's not a curse, it's a gift, because if everything lasted, we'd stop caring, we'd stop noticing, we'd stop feeling, and maybe that's what time teaches us, that every second counts not because it's many, but because it's few, and that makes every one more powerful, more beautiful, and maybe that's the heart of it. Time makes life rare, and rare things shine, and when we lose someone, we feel the pain of time. Not just the loss of a person, but the loss of shared time, the things we won't get to say, the places we won't go together, and that hurts deeply, but it also shows that time is love's frame, it holds our memories, it holds our moments, and that's why we cry, not because time took something, but because time gave us something we didn't want to end, and that's the balance. Time gives and time takes, and we can't stop it, but we can honor it, we can use it, not perfectly, but with care, with purpose. We can choose to show up, to be kind, to listen, to speak, to create, to rest, to dream, because that's all time asks of us, not to be perfect, but to be present, not to win, but to try, and maybe that's enough. And the strange thing is, the more we accept that time moves, the more peaceful we feel, not because we have control, but because we stop fighting the current, we start floating, we start feeling, and suddenly, we're not chasing time, we're walking with it, side by side, step by step, and that's when life starts to feel full, not when we fill every hour with work, but when we notice the space between things, the quiet, the laughter, the silence, the sky, and maybe that's the real answer. Maybe time isn't something to manage, maybe it's something to meet, like a friend, not an enemy, not a clock, but a presence, a rhythm. And maybe time isn't just about minutes and years, maybe it's about meaning, and every moment has it, even the small ones, especially the small ones. Because that's where life happens, not in the big milestones, but in the everyday, and if we pay attention, we start to see it, we start to feel it, and the fear of time fades, and the beauty of time grows, and in the end, we may not understand what time really is, but we can choose how we live inside it, and maybe that choice, that simple act of being here now, is what gives time its true meaning. There's something strange about memory. We think of it as a tool to remember the past, but memory also shapes how we feel time. When we look back at a year full of new things, it feels long, but when we live through that year, it feels fast, and that's because the brain doesn't track time like a clock, it tracks change, and the more change it sees, the more time it feels. That's why childhood feels longer than adulthood. When we're kids, everything is new. Every day is full of firsts, new words, new places, new faces, and our brain lights up. It records everything, and that makes time feel slow. But when we grow up and fall into routines, the brain stops recording as much. It says, "We've seen this before, let's skip it," and time feels faster. And that's why a vacation in a new place feels long and full, but the same week at the office feels like it vanished. And this shows that memory is not just about the past. It's about how we build the feeling of time. And here's something even stranger: the brain edits memory. It doesn't store events like a video, it breaks them into pieces, throws away parts, fills in blanks. And when we remember something, we rebuild it, we tell a story using bits and pieces, and the more we tell that story, the more it changes, and this means our memory of time is always shifting, always moving, just like time itself. And yet, memory gives time shape. Without memory, there's no past, and without imagining, there's no future, and both use the same parts of the brain. To remember and to imagine is to time travel inside your head, and that's amazing, because it means we don't just live in the present, we stretch across time, we look back, we look forward, we plan, we hope, we regret, we learn, and all of that happens in the brain's map of time, and scientists call this the mental timeline, a way we place events in order. And this line is flexible. We can jump back and forth on it, we can stand in the now and feel something from years ago, like it's today, or we can dream of tomorrow so vividly it feels real. And that's the power of memory and imagination. They let us move through time without moving at all, and it's not just personal, even groups and nations do this. We build shared memories. We mark history, we create timelines, and through that we build identity. We say this happened, and then that, and here we are now, and we hope for this, and fear that. And all of it is a story wrapped in time, and sometimes, memory tricks us. We remember things that didn't happen, or forget things that did. We mix dates, we flip events, we add details that never existed, and yet, we still build our lives on those memories, and this makes us wonder, if memory is this flexible, this fragile, can we ever trust our sense of time? And the answer is complicated. We can trust it to feel, to guide, to connect, but not always to measure. The brain's time is soft, not sharp, it flows like music, not machines, and maybe that's okay. Because we're not clocks, we're people, and we live through moments, not just minutes, and those moments shape us, they become us, and even if we forget some, they still leave marks, like waves smoothing stone, slowly, gently, and sometimes deeply. And that's why stories matter, because they hold memory. They pass it on, they share time between people, and when someone tells a story, they give you a piece of their time, a slice of their life, a part of their world, and that's a kind of magic. To take one moment from one person and give it to another across time, across space, and maybe that's what art is too: music, paintings, books, they hold time, they freeze feeling, they carry memory, and that's why we return to them, not just for beauty, but to feel time again, to step into another now, and that reminds us that time is not just something we move through, it's something we leave behind, like footprints, like echoes. And even when we're gone, the time we touched might still be felt, in a song, in a smile, in a story, and that's comforting, because it means time doesn't just pass, it connects, it carries, it holds, and that's why memory is more than looking back, it's a bridge, a way to reach across time and hold on to what matters, and maybe that's how we make peace with time, not by holding it still, but by holding each other, by sharing stories, by remembering together, by imagining together, and through that, turning time into something more than a ticking clock. Something human, something real, something that lasts. Every second we live becomes the past, and every breath we take moves us toward the future, but we only ever feel the present, and that moment is gone before we can hold it, yet we spend our lives trying to manage time, trying to plan it, control it, master it. We build schedules, set alarms, chase deadlines, count hours, and in doing that we hope to gain more of it, to make the most of it. But time doesn't listen. It doesn't care, it doesn't wait, it moves at its own pace, quiet, steady, invisible, and still it shapes everything, and maybe that's why we sometimes feel lost in it, overwhelmed, like we're falling behind, like we'll never catch up. But maybe the problem isn't time, maybe it's how we treat it. Maybe we see time as a race, a ladder, a test, when really it's just a river, and we're meant to float, not fight, to ride with it, not against it, and that starts when we stop trying to squeeze more hours into the day, and start paying attention to the hours we already have. Because time is not something we get more of, it's something we see differently, and when we slow down, time seems to stretch, when we focus, time feels fuller, when we let go of rushing, we start to notice the moment we're in, and that's when time opens up, and suddenly we're not behind anymore, we're exactly where we're meant to be, and the truth is, time is not just a number or a line, it's a feeling, a rhythm, and that rhythm changes with how we live. A moment of joy feels quick, a moment of grief feels endless, a conversation can last 5 minutes or 5 lifetimes in our hearts, and all of that shows that time is not only outside us, it's inside us, shaped by memory, shaped by meaning, shaped by presence, and this matters because how we live with time shapes how we live with life. If we're always rushing, we miss the view. If we're always waiting, we miss the now. But if we pause, even for a second, we might find that time is not running out, it's right here, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be lived, and maybe that's the only real way to have more time, not by chasing it, but by noticing it, by choosing it, by honoring it, and when we do, we start to see that time is full of gifts, a quiet sunrise, a shared meal, a deep breath, a held hand, a laugh that echoes longer than the moment, a word that stays long after it's spoken, and those are the real treasures of time, the things that last beyond the clock. And that's why we have to be careful, not with time itself, but with how we treat it, because we can spend years chasing the wrong things, missing the good ones, thinking we're out of time when really we just weren't paying attention, and that's the danger, not running out, but running past what matters, and that's why sometimes we need to stop, to look around, to ask, what am I really doing with my time? What do I care about? What fills me? What drains me? What matters? And then choose again. Because time is a gift, not a punishment, not a task. And it's not too late, it's never too late, not as long as you're still here, still breathing, still able to make a choice, to make a change, to make a moment count. And the truth is, the best use of time isn't doing more, it's doing what matters, what feels real, what brings peace, what builds love, what leaves something behind, not just in the world, but in the hearts of others. And when we live that way, time stops being a weight, it becomes a path. And it takes us somewhere good, not always easy, not always perfect, but full, and that's what we're really looking for, not more time, but more life in the time we have. And when we give that to ourselves and to others, we're not just passing time, we're shaping it, we're filling it, we're honoring it, and that is the beginning of something beautiful. Sometimes we wonder if time is moving too fast or if we are just not paying attention anymore. When we were younger, everything felt bigger, slower, brighter, days felt like entire worlds, summers seemed endless, waiting for anything felt like forever, but now the years pass like weeks, and the weeks blur into each other, and we say time is flying, but maybe it's not time that's changed. Maybe it's us. Maybe we stopped noticing the little things, maybe we started rushing through the moments that used to hold our attention, and maybe we filled our time so full that we no longer feel any of it, and that's a strange thing, to be busy all the time and yet feel like we have none, to move all day and still feel stuck, and it makes us wonder where time goes. But maybe the real question is, where did our focus go? Because time is not just measured in clocks, it's measured in presence, and when we lose presence we lose time. Not in years but in meaning, and that's why a single minute with someone we love can feel more real than a whole day without connection, and this is what we need to remember, that time is not a thing we use, it's a space we live in. And how we live in it changes how we experience it, and if we want time to slow down we don't need to stop the world, we just need to start paying attention again, to look up, to listen, to breathe, to notice the taste of our food, the sound of the wind, the way sunlight moves across a room, to be where we are instead of always being where we're going next. And that sounds simple, but it's not easy, because everything around us is built to steal attention, to pull us into the next thing, the next scroll, the next task, the next rush, and soon we're living like we're always late, even when we're not, and we forget how to just be, how to sit in time, how to let moments pass without grabbing or wasting them, just being with them, and the people who master that. They don't have more hours, they just make their hours count more, because presence stretches time, it fills it, and when we live that way, we start to see time differently, not as an enemy or a chase, but as a gift, a gentle flow that we can ride, and when we stop resisting it, we begin to trust it, and that changes everything. Because trusting time means believing that things unfold when they're meant to, that healing takes time, that growth takes time, that answers come not when we rush but when we're ready, and sometimes what we need is not more time, but more patience with the time we have, and more faith that it's enough, and when we do that, we stop fearing the future, we stop regretting the past, and we begin to live in a way that feels whole, and time begins to feel kind again, not because it's longer, but because we're finally in it. And maybe that's what it means to use time well, not to do everything, but to be truly here for something, to give our moments attention, to give our minutes meaning, and that doesn't mean every second must be perfect or productive. It just means being awake to your own life, not sleepwalking through it, and when we do that, we change, we soften, we slow down inside even if the world keeps moving fast, and we begin to carry time instead of being carried by it, and that's a quiet power, to move with time instead of against it, to dance with it, to trust it, and to honor it not because we fear it will end, but because we know that it will, and that's what makes it so precious, not its limit, but its presence, the way it holds everything, every joy, every sorrow, every word, every silence, every ending, every beginning, all of it wrapped in time, and when we remember that, we begin to live more gently, more fully, more present, and time begins to feel like a friend again, not something we're running from or chasing, just something we're sharing this life with. There's something beautiful about the way time moves without asking. It doesn't wait for permission, it doesn't ask if we're ready, it just flows, soft and steady, and no matter how hard we try, we can't stop it, we can't pause it, we can't rewind it, and maybe that's not a curse but a blessing, because it means we're always moving forward, always being pushed into new moments, new chances, new beginnings. And sometimes it feels like time is against us, like there's never enough, like we're always late, but maybe time isn't the enemy, maybe the real problem is how we carry it, how we worry over it, how we try to control it instead of trust it, because time has a rhythm of its own, and when we stop fighting that rhythm, we start to find peace, and that peace isn't about having more hours, it's about being more present in the hours we already have. And that starts when we stop measuring our days by how much we got done, and start asking how we felt while doing it, because time isn't just about tasks, it's about meaning, it's about connection, it's about presence, and if we miss that, we miss the point, we miss the moment, and the truth is, some of the best things in life don't fit on a schedule, a deep talk with a friend, a slow walk with no destination, a quiet evening watching the sky change, those things can't be rushed, can't be forced, and when we give them our time, they give us something back. Something deeper than productivity, something like peace, something like joy, and that's the kind of time that lasts, the kind we remember, and yet we spend so much of our lives trying to outrun the clock, to do more, be more, achieve more, but at the end of the day, it's not the numbers that fill us, it's the memories, the people, the stillness, and that's what time is really for. It's not here to be conquered, it's here to be lived, and when we slow down enough to see that, everything changes. Because we start to see that time is not just something we move through. It's something that moves through us, it shapes our thoughts, our feelings, our choices, and when we honor that, we start to live differently, we start to listen more, speak softer, love deeper, and we stop rushing through life like it's a race to the end, and instead we start walking like it's a path worth noticing, and that shift changes everything, not just how we feel, but who we are, because how we treat time is how we treat life, and how we treat life is how we treat others, and that ripple moves outward, it touches more than we think, because when we are calm, others feel safe, when we are present, others feel seen, and that's how time connects us, not just in shared minutes, but in shared presence, in shared truth, and in shared care. And maybe that's what makes time sacred, not because it's rare, but because it's real. It's the one thing we all live inside, and when we give it with love, it becomes something more, something powerful, something healing, and we don't need to be perfect to do that. We just need to show up, to pay attention, to choose presence over pressure, meaning over noise, people over plans, and in doing that, we begin to feel whole again, not because we've slowed the world down, but because we've slowed ourselves down, just enough to feel the moment, just enough to see the light. And when we live like that, we find that time isn't slipping away, it's opening up, it's welcoming us in, it's offering us space to breathe, to grow, to care, and that's all we ever really needed, not more time, but more life inside the time we have. Time is something we all talk about, we ask where it goes, we try to save it, we try not to waste it, we say things like I need more time, or I lost time, or time got away from me, and we act like time is something outside of us, something we need to chase or hold on to. But what if time isn't running? What if we are? What if time is always just right here, steady and quiet, and it's us who keep moving too fast to see it? Because the truth is, time doesn't rush, it doesn't panic, it doesn't complain, it just keeps flowing, like a calm river under everything we do, and if we stop for a moment, really stop, we might feel it again, we might feel the weight of a second, the truth in a minute, the peace in an hour, and that's when we realize that time isn't empty, it's full, and we don't need to do more to make it matter, we just need to be in it, to really be in it, and that's hard sometimes, because the world tells us to hurry, to hustle, to keep going, but time doesn't ask for that. It just asks for presence, for awareness, for care, and when we give it that, something changes, we feel less like we're drowning in time, and more like we're floating with it, and that's not about being lazy or doing nothing, it's about being present with what we do, it's about giving our full attention to the moment, to the task, to the person in front of us, and that's how time becomes real again. Not as a pressure, but as a partner, something that walks with us, not against us, and this shift doesn't happen all at once, it happens slowly, in little choices, like putting down our phones for 5 minutes, like listening fully when someone talks, like sitting outside and watching the sky change, and those choices add up, they stretch time, they deepen it. And before we know it, we're not rushing anymore, we're living, and that's the difference between time passing and time mattering, and once we feel that, we begin to treat our time differently, not like something to spend, but like something to share, to protect, to fill with things that mean something, and maybe that means saying no more often, or slowing down when we want to speed up, or letting go of things that don't feel right anymore, and maybe it means asking new questions, not what do I have to do today, but what will make this day feel real, what will make this hour feel whole, what will I remember when it's gone, because time is always moving, but meaning is what stays, and when we fill our time with meaning, we stop fearing the clock, and we start feeling the life inside each second, and we realize that time isn't something we lose, it's something we give, to people, to ideas, to dreams, to rest, and that gift can never come back, but it can always move forward, it can always grow, and maybe that's the real power of time, not in how long it lasts, but in what it becomes, what it builds, what it holds, and what it leaves behind. And that's why we have to choose carefully, not because time is running out, but because time is always becoming something, and we are the ones who shape it. We are the ones who decide if this minute is just another minute, or if it's something more, something alive, something honest. And if we can remember that, if we can live with that, then time becomes a friend, a teacher, a guide, and we stop being afraid of it, we start being grateful for it, and that changes everything. Sometimes we think of time like a road, a straight line from birth to death, from start to finish, and we imagine ourselves walking that road step by step, day by day, but maybe that's not the best way to see it. Maybe time is not a straight path but a spiral, a loop, a dance. Maybe we don't just move forward but also around, revisiting the same lessons, the same feelings, the same choices in different forms. And when we see life that way, it changes how we carry time. We stop thinking of it as something we lose and start seeing it as something we move through again and again, learning more each time, seeing more each time. And maybe that's why some moments feel familiar, why some feelings return even when we thought we were past them, because time brings us back to things, not to trap us, but to teach us, to let us heal deeper, love better, grow stronger. And when we trust that, we stop fearing the past. We stop trying to race into the future, and we start being present with where we are, and that's powerful, because the present is the only place where anything actually happens, the only place where we can change, create, forgive, laugh, rest. And if we miss the present, we miss life, we miss the small things that turn into the big things, the quiet seconds that become loud memories, and time is full of those, full of hidden treasures that only reveal themselves when we slow down, when we listen, when we let go of trying to control everything. And that's not easy, because we're taught to control time, to fill it, to organize it, to never waste it. But sometimes the most beautiful moments are the ones we didn't plan, the ones we stumbled into, the ones that happened when we stopped watching the clock. And that's not being irresponsible, that's being human, and being human means feeling, wondering, failing, learning, loving, and all of that takes time, real time, not fast time, not rush time, but open time, where we give ourselves space to breathe, to not know, to not have the answer yet. And in that space, we often find what we were missing. We find clarity, we find courage, we find peace. And that's when we realize that time is not something to win, it's something to witness, something to walk with, something to hold gently. And when we live like that, we start seeing life differently. We stop comparing timelines with others. We stop feeling behind. We start trusting our own pace, our own rhythm, and that's when life begins to feel real, not because it's perfect, but because it's ours, lived in our time, our way. And that's all we need, because there's no such thing as being late in a life that's your own. And every step you take, no matter how slow, is part of the journey, and the journey itself is made of time, and time is made of moments, and moments are made of choices, and choices are made of presence, and presence is something we can choose right now, this second, just by paying attention, by breathing, by looking around and seeing where we are, who we're with, how we feel. And that awareness is the beginning of everything. It's the doorway to meaning, and meaning is what makes time matter. It's not the hours that change us, it's what we do inside them, and what we do with our time becomes who we are, not in big dramatic ways, but in quiet repeated choices, and those choices stack up, they become habits, and habits shape our days, and our days become our life. And suddenly time is not just passing by, it's building us. And we are building it too, and that is the gift, that we are not just watchers of time, we are makers of it, shapers of it, and when we remember that, we begin to use time not just to survive, but to create, to connect, to express, to love, and in that kind of time, everything grows, everything softens, everything begins again. It's easy to think that time is something far away from us, something ticking in the background, something we hear but don't touch, something that just moves on while we try to keep up, but the truth is, time is personal, it's something we feel, something we carry, something we live with every moment, and how we feel about time changes how we live. If we see it as pressure we feel rushed, if we see it as loss we feel fear, but if we see it as a gift we feel thankful, and that choice is always ours, because time isn't good or bad, it just is, it's what we place on top of it that gives it color, gives it weight, gives it meaning, and that's why two people can live the same hour and feel it so differently. One may feel bored, the other may feel alive, one may feel trapped, the other may feel free, and the difference isn't time itself, it's how we meet it, how we show up for it, and that means we always have a little bit of power, even on the hardest days, even in the slowest seasons. Even when we feel stuck or lost, we can choose how to move with time, we can choose how to see it, and sometimes that means letting go of what we thought should happen by now, letting go of the schedule we built in our head, letting go of the pressure to always be doing, fixing, achieving, and instead, accepting the moment as it is, messy, quiet, beautiful, unfinished, and in that acceptance we find peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because we stop fighting what is, and we start living in it, and time responds to that, it softens, it stretches, it becomes more generous, and we begin to feel less like time is chasing us and more like it's walking beside us, steady and calm, and that's the kind of time we all need, time that feels like a friend, time that feels safe, time that lets us breathe, and we can create that for ourselves by slowing down just a little, by noticing just a little more, by being kinder to ourselves, because so much of our stress about time isn't really about time, it's about fear, fear of missing out, fear of falling behind, fear of not being enough yet, and when we let those fears go, time starts to feel different, it starts to feel open again, like there's room to grow, room to change, room to rest, and that's what we forget sometimes, that time isn't just for doing, it's also for being human, being present, being honest, being still, and that kind of time heals us, even when we don't realize it, it gives our mind space. Our hearts rest, our bodies care, and in that space, we remember who we are, not what we've done, but who we are when we're not trying so hard, when we're just being, and that is the version of us that often gets buried under the busy, the tired, the stress, but that version is always there, waiting, and time is how we find our way back, not by rushing, but by listening, listening to what matters, what hurts, what helps, what brings peace, and when we do that, we find our own rhythm again, not the world's, not the clock's, but ours, the one that feels right, the one that feels real, and that rhythm doesn't have to be fast, it just has to be true, and when we live in that truth, time stops being a race, it becomes a home, a space where we can grow slowly, deeply, fully, and that is what makes life feel rich, not the amount of time we have, but the amount of life we pour into it, and when we live like that, even ordinary days become meaningful, even quiet hours feel full, and time becomes not just something we move through, but something we make beautiful. There's a quiet kind of wisdom that comes when we stop rushing and start noticing, when we stop counting the minutes and start feeling them, when we stop asking how much time we have and start asking how we are spending the time we've been given, and this shift doesn't happen all at once, it happens slowly, like morning light filling a room, and once it starts, it changes everything, because we begin to see that time is not something we need to fight, it's something we can flow with, and that flow is soft, it's steady, it's human, and we're all moving through it in different ways, at different paces, and that's okay, because there is no one right way to move through life, no perfect schedule, no exact path, there is only what is true for you, and your time doesn't need to look like anyone else's, it just needs to feel honest, it just needs to hold what matters to you, and that might mean letting go of comparison. Letting go of the idea that you're behind, because behind compared to what? Behind compared to who? The truth is, the only timeline that matters is your own, and you are allowed to grow slow, to rest, to pause, to change direction, to start again, and none of that is wasted time, it's lived time, it's learning time, and learning is never lost. And that's the beautiful thing about time, it holds all of it, the trying, the failing, the healing, the hoping, it holds our laughter and our tears, our silence and our songs, our chaos and our calm, and it doesn't judge any of it, it just holds it, and we can choose how to fill it, not with perfection, but with presence, not with pressure, but with purpose, and that purpose doesn't have to be big, it doesn't have to be loud, it just has to be true, and sometimes the truest things are the smallest, a kind word, a deep breath, a shared smile, and when we give those things our time, they grow, they stretch, they echo long after the moment ends. And that's the quiet power of time, it lets us plant seeds we may never see bloom, it lets us build things that outlast us, not because we moved fast, but because we moved with care, and that care shows up in how we spend our days, in how we listen, in how we show up, in how we rest, and rest is not wasting time, rest is honoring it, rest is saying I matter even when I'm not producing, I matter even when I'm not busy, I matter just because I'm here. And that truth is one we forget in a world that worships speed, but the soul doesn't move fast, the heart doesn't rush, healing doesn't happen overnight, and love doesn't live in urgency, it lives in stillness, in presence, in showing up again and again with softness and with care, and that kind of time is powerful, because it's real, and we all need more of that. We all need time that feels safe, that feels kind, that feels like it's ours, and we can give that to ourselves, not by adding more hours, but by taking a moment, even one, to breathe, to notice, to say this moment is mine and I choose how to fill it, and maybe that's all it takes to begin again, not a big change, not a perfect plan, just a small pause, a quiet yes to the now, and from there, we can build something beautiful, one moment at a time. There's something honest about time, something quiet that tells the truth even when we don't want to hear it. It shows us what matters, not by shouting, but by showing, by revealing what stays and what fades, what feels real and what doesn't, and it does this without force, without judgment. It just moves, gently and constantly, and in that movement, we begin to understand what lasts, we begin to see what fills us and what empties us. And that kind of awareness takes time, it takes silence, it takes space, because in the rush of everyday life, we often miss what's right in front of us. We move from one task to another, one screen to the next, and suddenly the day is gone and we can't remember where we were, who we were with, or how we felt. And that's not because the day didn't matter, it's because we weren't really in it, and this is where presence becomes a kind of power, not loud power, but soft power. The power to slow time down by noticing it, by stepping fully into the moment. And when we do that, something shifts, colors look brighter, voices sound clearer, the air feels lighter, and life begins to feel more like something we're living and less like something we're rushing through, and that's when we realize that time is not about doing more, it's about feeling more, it's about being honest with what we need, what we love, what we miss, and what we hope for, and that honesty builds a life that feels full, not because every hour is packed, but because every hour has meaning, and meaning can look like many things. It can look like working on something you care about, or sitting in silence, or laughing with someone you love, or crying when you need to, and all of that is part of time, all of that is part of living, and we don't have to earn our time, we just have to show up for it, and sometimes that means doing less, not because we're lazy, but because we're listening, because we're choosing. And that choice is what makes the difference, the choice to be present, to rest when we're tired, to speak when it matters, to stay quiet when it doesn't, to move when we're ready, and to trust that time will carry us where we need to go, even if we don't have all the answers yet, and that trust grows over time, not all at once, but slowly, in pieces. And it's okay to not have it all figured out, it's okay to take it one moment at a time, because time isn't asking for perfection, it's asking for presence, and presence doesn't mean doing everything right. It means being here, really here, and when we are, we start to see the beauty in small things, the peace in stillness, the comfort in routines, and the freedom in letting go of what we thought time had to look like, because your time doesn't have to match anyone else's, it just has to match your heart, your values, your pace, and when it does, life feels more like home, and less like a race, and that is when time begins to feel kind again, like something that holds you, not something that hurts you. And maybe that's what we've been looking for all along, not more hours, not more days, but more connection to the time we already have, more moments that feel true, more days that feel lived, and more time that feels like it belongs to us, not to the world, not to the clock, but to us. Time is always moving and yet it often feels like we're standing still. We look around and wonder how so much has changed while we feel the same. We think about the past and it feels close, like we could reach out and touch it, and then we think about the future and it feels far, full of questions we can't answer yet. But in between the past and the future is this space, the present, and that's the only place where life really happens. The only place where we can breathe, where we can choose, where we can live, and yet we spend so little time in that space. We're often looking back, replaying what we said, what we did, what we should have done, or we're looking ahead, trying to plan every step, every moment, every outcome, and in doing that we miss the only time that truly belongs to us, the now, and the now is not always perfect. Sometimes it's messy, confusing, uncertain, but it's also full of chances, full of light, full of things we can touch, feel, change, and that's where our power lives, not in rewriting the past or predicting the future, but in being here, right now, with open eyes, with open hands, and with an open heart, and that kind of presence takes practice, it takes effort, because we're surrounded by distractions, by noise, by urgency, and it's easy to believe that being busy means we're living fully, but that's not always true. Sometimes the busiest moments are the most empty, and the quietest moments are the most full, full of clarity, full of truth, full of meaning, and that's what we have to remind ourselves of, that time is not just about what we do, it's about how we do it, it's about why we do it, and when we bring meaning into our time, even the smallest things become sacred. Even the most ordinary days feel special, and we begin to move differently, to speak more gently, to listen more deeply, and to live more honestly, and that kind of life builds over time. It doesn't rush, it doesn't force, it grows slowly, like a tree, like trust, like love, and when we give our time to the things that truly matter, we feel it. We feel more grounded, more connected, more alive, and it doesn't mean life becomes easy, but it does become real, and that realness is what we're all looking for, something that lasts, something that fills us, something that gives our days shape, and it's not found in a perfect schedule or a perfect plan, it's found in the choice to live on purpose, to give our time instead of just spending it, to hold our time instead of just counting it, and that's the shift, from running through time to walking with it, from fearing the end to honoring the middle, and the middle is where most of life happens, in between the big moments, in the space we often skip, and that's where we find ourselves, not in the big wins, but in the daily steps, in the quiet work, in the unnoticed care. And all of that is time well spent, not because anyone else sees it, but because we feel it, and when we feel it, we remember it. And when we remember it, we carry it, and it shapes us, and when we are shaped by time instead of crushed by it, we begin to live with peace, with softness, and with gratitude, because we know that every second is a chance, not to be perfect, but to be present. There's something powerful about realizing that time doesn't owe us anything, it doesn't promise tomorrow, it doesn't hold back yesterday, it just offers now, this moment, this breath, this choice, and that can feel scary sometimes, like everything is passing too quickly, like we're running out of chances, but it can also feel freeing, because it means we don't have to wait for some perfect future to begin living. We can start now, right here, right where we are, with what we have, and we don't have to be perfect to make the moment matter, we just have to be present, and that's a gift we can give ourselves again and again, the gift of presence, the gift of choosing to live instead of just getting through the day. And it doesn't have to be dramatic, it can be simple, like pausing before we speak, like noticing the color of the sky, like putting our phone down when someone we love is talking, and those moments may not seem big, but they're everything, because they are real, and real. Moments are what time is made of, not just plans, not just goals, but the in-between, the quiet, the ordinary, and when we slow down enough to see that, we begin to see how full time really is, full of emotion, full of memory, full of opportunity, and we start to trust it more, not because it's always easy, but because it's always honest. It shows us where we've been and offers us a way forward. And that path forward isn't always clear, but it's always open, as long as we're willing to take one step, and then another, and then another. And the beauty is we don't have to walk fast, we just have to walk true to ourselves, true to what matters, true to what brings peace, and in doing that, we stop chasing time and start walking with it. And walking with time means being okay with change. It means knowing that some things will end, that some seasons will close, and that's not failure, that's flow, that's life. And when we stop trying to hold on so tight, we begin to receive more, we begin to grow, and growth doesn't always look big. Sometimes it's silent, sometimes it's slow, but it's still happening, and when we give ourselves time to grow, we give others that same gift. We become more patient, more gentle, more present, and those qualities don't come from rushing, they come from listening, from noticing, from choosing, and we can choose at any moment to live with more care, more meaning, more heart. Because time is not measured only by clocks, it's measured by what we fill it with, by who we share it with, and by how we feel inside it, and that feeling is the one thing we carry, long after the hour ends, long after the day is gone. We carry how we lived, not what we checked off, and that's what makes a life feel full, not more time, but more truth, and truth is always found in the now, never in the rush, never in the fear, only in the quiet presence of this moment, this choice, this breath. And if we can be there, even for a second, we've already changed something, we've already created space, and in that space we can breathe, we can rest, we can begin again, and beginning again is what time is always offering us, a new chance, a clean start, a fresh moment, and that's something worth honoring, something worth feeling, something worth choosing. Time moves with or without us, it doesn't pause for doubt, it doesn't stop for fear, it doesn't wait for us to be ready, it just keeps going, and that can feel hard when we're stuck or hurting or unsure, but it can also be the very thing that saves us, because time keeps moving forward, and that means we're never truly stuck, we're never truly out of chances. Every second is a quiet invitation to begin again, to try again, to breathe again, and when we really see that, we stop fearing time and start working with it. We start using it not to rush, but to rebuild, not to chase, but to choose, and in choosing, we find our rhythm again, not the world's rhythm, not the noise outside, but our own, the one that knows when to rest, when to rise, when to let go, when to hold on, and that kind of rhythm brings peace, and peace is something time can't give us unless we give it to ourselves, not by doing more, but by being more present, more aware, more honest, and presence doesn't mean perfect focus, it just means noticing, feeling the air, the sounds, the space we're in, the way we're breathing, and letting that moment be enough, and when we do that, time feels slower, not because it's changed, but because we've stopped racing through and started showing up, and that's what changes everything, not a new year or a new clock, but a new awareness, a new way of seeing time not as pressure, but as possibility. And possibility lives in the smallest things, the tiniest changes, the quietest choices, the way we wake up, the way we speak, the way we pause before reacting, and those little moments create waves, they ripple out into how we live, how we love, how we grow, and growth isn't loud, growth is often quiet, slow, steady, and time makes room for that, if we let it, if we stop trying to fit ourselves into someone else's timeline and start honoring our own, because our story is ours. And no one else's path needs to match it, and time will take us where we need to go. If we stay present, if we stay kind, if we keep showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, and we will be okay, not because we have everything figured out, but because we are willing to keep moving, and time honors that, it responds to that, it meets us where we are, and it gives us room to grow, to heal, to breathe, and when we breathe fully, even for a moment, we remind ourselves that we are alive, that we are still here, still able to choose, still able to change, and change doesn't come all at once, it comes in moments, in seconds, in the small ways we begin again, and time will hold those changes, it will carry them forward, it will turn them into something real, and that's what matters, not how fast we go, but how true we are, how present we are, and how willing we are to honor the time we're given, even when it's quiet, even when it's slow, even when it doesn't look like progress. Because time sees what we can't always see, it sees the seeds being planted, the strength being built, the healing taking shape, and it reminds us that we're never as far behind as we think, we're just becoming who we're meant to be, in our own time, in our own way, and that is more than enough. Time moves with or without us, it doesn't pause for doubt, it doesn't stop for fear, it doesn't wait for us to be ready, it just keeps going, and that can feel hard when we're stuck or hurting or unsure, but it can also be the very thing that saves us, because time keeps moving forward and that means we're never truly stuck, we're never truly out of chances. Every second is a quiet invitation to begin again, to try again, to breathe again, and when we really see that, we stop fearing time and start working with it, we start using it not to rush, but to rebuild, not to chase, but to choose, and in choosing, we find our rhythm again, not the world's rhythm, not the noise outside, but our own, the one that knows when to rest, when to rise, when to let go, when to hold on, and that kind of rhythm brings peace, and peace is something time can't give us unless we give it to ourselves, not by doing more, but by being more present, more aware, more honest, and presence doesn't mean perfect focus, it just means noticing, feeling the air, the sounds, the space we're in, the way we're breathing, and letting that moment be enough, and when we do that, time feels slower, not because it's changed, but because we've stopped racing through and started showing up, and that's what changes everything, not a new year or a new clock, but a new awareness, a new way of seeing time not as pressure, but as possibility. And possibility lives in the smallest things, the tiniest changes. The quietest choices, the way we wake up, the way we speak, the way we pause before reacting, and those little moments create waves, they ripple out into how we live, how we love, how we grow, and growth isn't loud, growth is often quiet, slow, steady, and time makes room for that, if we let it, if we stop trying to fit ourselves into someone else's timeline and start honoring our own, because our story is ours, and no one else's path needs to match it, and time will take us where we need to go. If we stay present, if we stay kind, if we keep showing up even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, and we will be okay, not because we have everything figured out, but because we are willing to keep moving, and time honors that, it responds to that, it meets us where we are, and it gives us room to grow, to heal, to breathe, and when we breathe fully, even for a moment, we remind ourselves that we are alive, that we are still here, still able to choose, still able to change, and change doesn't come all at once, it comes in moments, in seconds, in the small ways we begin again, and time will hold those changes, it will carry them forward, it will turn them into something real, and that's what matters, not how fast we go, but how true we are, how present we are, and how willing we are to honor the time we're given, even when it's quiet, even when it's slow, even when it doesn't look like progress. Because time sees what we can't always see, it sees the seeds being planted, the strength being built, the healing taking shape, and it reminds us that we're never as far behind as we think, we're just becoming who we're meant to be, in our own time, in our own way, and that is more than enough. So now, as we look back at all we've explored, all the words, all the thoughts, one thing becomes clear: time isn't just a ticking sound or a number on a screen, it's not just something we count or manage or chase, time is life, it's the space in which we feel, change, connect, and grow, and once we understand that, we start to live differently, we stop waiting for the perfect day, we stop fearing the lost days. And we start loving the one we're in, and loving time means respecting it, not rushing it, not wasting it, but using it to be more present, more kind, more human, and maybe we'll still have days where we feel behind or out of sync or overwhelmed, but now we know those moments don't mean we've failed, they mean we're alive, and being alive is not about getting everything done. It's about being awake for what matters, and that means slowing down when the world tells us to speed up. It means listening when the noise tells us to talk. It means pausing when our hearts need space, and that kind of living builds a different kind of life, not one that's perfect, but one that's real, one that feels honest, that feels full, and that is what time was always meant to be. Not a race, but a rhythm, a song we learn to hear more clearly as we go, and the more we listen, the more we trust, and the more we trust, the more we find peace, and in that peace, we begin to live, not just survive, but truly live, with soft hearts, open hands, and eyes that see the beauty in even the smallest things. And maybe that's all we need, not more time, but more presence in the time we have, because every moment we live with presence is a moment we'll never regret, and those are the moments that make a life, those are the moments that matter, and now, with everything we've learned, everything we've felt, we carry a new truth, that time is not slipping through our fingers, we are holding it now, we are shaping it now. And we are finally here, fully here, and that is more than enough.